The fatwa against terrorism. A top Muslim scholar releases an edict denouncing terrorists and suicide bombers. Observers say this is the strongest criticism ever delivered by an Islamic leader. And joining us from London is our own Anne McMillan with more on the document that dismantles al-Qaeda's beliefs. And we've heard this from imams before, but who is the man releasing this controversial document?
Anne-Marie, Muhammad Tahir al-Qadri is a respected Muslim scholar who's written 350 books about Islam. He heads a grassroots religious organization based in Pakistan called Minhaj al-Quran and has a very large following there. His support in the UK, where he's in the process of making this speech right now, has really taken off in the past couple of years, and his group now has 10 mosques in British cities. He launched his fatwa denouncing terrorism in London today because he says he's concerned about the radicalization of British Muslims. The fatwa is contained in a 600-page judgment made up of a long list of theological arguments against violence, and they're drawn from classical teachings acceptable to all sects of Islam. It says that Islam forbids the massacre of innocent citizens, and it denounces terrorists and suicide bombers as unbelievers. At today's launch, he said that, and I quote, "Whatever these terrorists are doing, it is not martyrdom. All these activities are taking them to hellfire." Those are his words. His fatwa also condemns al-Qaeda, which he describes as an old evil with a new name.
And members, obviously, of al-Qaeda tend to be on the more extreme side of the Islam religion. So will this document make any kind of a difference?
Well, that's a very good question, because Islamic scholars have condemned terrorism in the past, but
a word to the wise. Fatwa. It's an Arabic word for a legal opinion or order made by an Islamic religious leader.
A Muslim scholar in London is issuing a fatwa against terrorism. Some Islamic leaders have used the teachings of the Quran, Islam's holy book, to justify terrorism and suicide bombings. But this cleric we're telling you about today says that idea is totally false. Muhammad Tahir ul-Qadri explained this fatwa earlier this week. He studied the religious writings and says that violence is never justified by the Quran. He also criticized the idea that anyone who carries out a terrorist act would be promised an afterlife of paradise. Some officials have come out in support of ul-Qadri's fatwa. They say it might not stop suicide bombers, but it could encourage younger Muslims to reconsider joining extremist groups. Some of those groups use the Quran to try to recruit young members to commit violence. But ul-Qadri says the holy book is very clear on that point.
Terrorism is terrorism. Violence is violence. It has no place in Islamic teachings, and no justification can be provided to it on the basis of any kind of excuses.
Back in the U.S., a lot of cities are looking.
A fatwa on terrorism. A prominent Islamic scholar has issued a religious edict declaring that suicide bombers are unbelievers rather than martyrs.
Board of Governors.
Dr. Muhammad Tahir al-Qadri is an advisor to the British government on ways of combating the radicalization of young Muslims.
I would say total condemnation of every act of terrorism, in every form and every manifestation of radicalism and terrorism, which is being committed or which has been committed for the last 1 or 2 decades wrongly in the name of Islam.
There have been similar fatwas in the past, but analysts say al-Qadri's goes further by denouncing extremists as unbelievers. While it may hold no sway with hardliners, his influence is such that it may well dissuade younger, more impressionable Muslims from acts of terror.
This is the comprehensive condemnation of terrorism and suicide bombing, based on the original evidences of Quran and the Sunnah of Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and the classical authorities of Islam, which are irrefutable by any scholar or any person belonging to any sect.